Are there some like life hacks that you've learned about balancing everything?
You just have to do it. Whatever you need to do to make it work, you just got to make it work. There's some days I don't have all the answers. There are some days where I'm just like, oh, please, Lord, give me strength for today. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to figure it out. So I think it's just whatever is needed in the moment, I just have to make it happen. And that's what I do.
Welcome to the UMGC podcast, Unstoppable Stories, with your host, Lauren Cardillo.
Today, I'm joined by Danielle Rowell, who is a cybersecurity guru expert, who also native Virginian and a UMGC grad. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
We love having you. So the first thing that stuck out to me, just because I was a communications major, is how did you go from like communications to cyber? Because generally those worlds do not meld. So what was it in your head that said, I should do this?
Well, so all throughout college, I was a part of the Student Activities Council, where we put on large events for the entire campus. And I went to ODM University, so shout out to ODU. Uh, and so I loved putting on events. And prior to going into college, I love just doing things like that, just putting together events. And so I said, well, I'll just go into communications and I'll be an event planner and life will be great. And, as I started to get to junior or senior year, I said, I don't know how lucrative this is going to be for me. And unless I'm like, the best event planner, wedding planner, I said, I think I need a little bit more stability. And so it wasn't until after I graduated, trying to find a job, that I saw what was then UMUC, and which is now UMGC. Um, I saw the commercial advertising for cybersecurity. And so my mom, she'd worked her whole entire professional career in the government besides her military time. So I said, I think I can do this and hopefully get a government job. And so that's how I made the switch. And so like getting my master's in cyber, you're right, is a big difference. Uh, and in terms of the coursework from communications, but as I really got into cyber, like as my career, having that communications background really helped me, because when you talk about cybersecurity to like different stakeholders who are not techie, right? Or you're talking to your business partners, you have to be able to communicate in non-technical speak. And so that really helped me.
Was there a technical part of it that really appealed to you though?
Yeah. So when I was going through the coursework, I thought that I was going to be the best penetration tester ever, because I was like, oh, I'm about to crack all these passwords, get into everything. And then I was like, no, this is not for me. This is not for me. And so I kind of settled on, more so the information assurance. I was kind of like the term back then, right? More the governance risk. So that's kind of where I landed in terms of cyber. But I've been all through cyber IT, just software development, all of that.
Why does it speak to you? You know what I mean? Why is it so intriguing to you?
It it just changes. It's so dynamic. I mean, the landscape, I would say from year to year, but sometimes it's literally from day to day. You never know what threats are gonna come your way, what new incidents are gonna come your way. The technology is constantly evolving. I mean, it's one of those things that keep you on your toes. And because there's so many different domains within cybersecurity, I mean, it's not like, your HR, no offense to any of my HR partners, where it's kind of like that one track. I mean, there's so many different disciplines that you could go down. And if you want to try something new, then you can do that. The world is yours at that point. And so that's what I loved about it so much.
How hard was it to find your first job?
Hmm. I will say it was a little difficult at first. I ended up being an executive assistant right out of college. And so, but I was still like getting my master's degree, right? So that was fine, right? But then afterwards, I said, okay, I'm ready to dive into the world of cyber. And so I knew this reverend from my church, and he said, "Hey, I think I have a job for you. I know a buddy. You have to go and interview with them, and just do your best, see what he says." And so when I went to go interview, it was for a risk analyst position, and he was like, "Look, I'm basically just doing this for my friend. If you could get your Security Plus certification in 30 days and come back to me, I'll give you a job." It was basically one of those like, "Okay, I did my due diligence. I don't think you're really gonna get this cert. I'm never gonna hear from you again," type of thing. I took it as a challenge because that means you doubted me. You had no faith in my abilities. I told you this what I wanted to do. I went and got my master's, and so I came back in 30 days with my certification. And he said, "Wow, I guess I have to give you the job." And so that's how I got the job. And that's how I
I
worked really hard to learn.
He wasn't expecting it, obviously, right?
No,
How
not at
long
all.
how long how long usually would it take someone to get that certification?
It just depends, right, on how motivated and focused you are. I was able to pass on my first attempt within 30 days. Um, but I've known people who have done complete, 180s, and it may have taken them about, maybe 4, 6 months on average, but it's not that hard of a certification to pass in the first place, but still not having any type of security background, so it could be challenging.
I'm sure, right? And
Yes.
that sort of seems like it follows a trend in your career where, you know, you're not in rooms where people are talking about what you're doing, or you can't they think you're younger than you are. Sort of
Yes.
what has kept you going or changed people's expectations?
I think just my drive and my determination. I'm really focused, and once I set my mind to something, like, I'm going out there with all I got. I'm putting everything into it. Like I said, when I got the risk analyst position, there's a lot that I didn't know. Like, I'd never done the job before. So it was a lot of long days, long nights, weekends. And I had to study hard because my colleagues were already, leaps and bounds ahead of me. And so I had to catch up, right? And I had to prove myself that I was able to do the job, that I could stand on my own. I didn't need anyone holding my hand. So, not only was it proving to other people, but it was really proving to myself that I can do it, and just tuning out all of the naysayers.
Was there a funny story about someone not knowing you were the person in charge or the person who knew what was going on? You know what I mean? Like, can't be her.
So, it's no secret that when people see me, a lot of the times they think, I'm 12. At least nowadays, I'm getting, 18 to 21. So it's a step up to where, we used to be, I guess. Um, so a lot of the times they would say, "Are you the intern?" Or, "Is it bring your child to work day?" Or it there a lot of times people were joking, but some folks were serious. So yes, there have been times where, people have come into meetings and said, "Okay, well, who's leading?" Me. They're like, "Oh, okay, well, go ahead."
There's part of that has to be fun for you, right?
It is, it is. They don't expect it.
Without giving me specifics. So you end up with a government job, correct? And sort of just end up in different agencies along the way? I mean, how did you sort of plot your career if there was a plan, you know?
Yes, yes. So like I said, I started off as executive assistant at DHS, and then made my way to the Coast Guard, working in the cyber command as a contractor. And then I got my first break into the government, working in the IC community, one of the three-letter agencies. I'll leave it at that. And then almost about 2.5 years ago, I left the IC and I came over to OPM as the chief cybersecurity engineer, and then recently became the CISO for OPM.
So for people out there who don't speak the same language, what does that mean you do every day?
Ooh. So, as the chief information security officer, I manage the cybersecurity program, which means I'm responsible for all our applications, our asset, the infrastructure, basically keeping the bad guys out. And for those who are very familiar with the OPM breach of 2015, I am trying to prevent another one. So I'll leave it at that.
So how do you do that? I mean, you're talking about round the clock surveillance to make sure that doesn't happen
Right.
and balancing a family with that because that can't be an easy thing to do.
Oftentimes, I don't know whether I'm coming or going, and even, today during this podcast, I am working off of 3 hours of sleep. Uh, the little one is sick, but work still has to be done, right? The attackers don't stop, and neither can we, right? But also being a mom, I love being a mom, and my family comes first. So I do the best that I can to balance. My husband's great. He always steps up and helps out, where I need it. But I definitely make it a priority to put my family first. But my career is definitely important as well.
Is there something you hope that is it's a son, correct? The 8-year-old?
So I have 2 girls, 8 and 6.
Okay, never mind. Your girls.
Yes.
Seeing you not get sleep, seeing how hard you work, is there something you hope that they're sort of getting, from you through, osmosis or whatever?
It's funny because I have caught them in my office, from time to time that when I'm, able to work from home. I've caught them in my home office. They'll put on my headset, and they will pretend like they are in meetings, and I can hear them using the language, "Hey, James," "da da da da," and it's so funny to me, but I love to see that, right? And it's teaching them that confidence, right? And so, what I'm trying to instill is in, like, you can do anything that you want to. You could be anything that you want to. You stay focused, you stay determined, hard work, grit, and dedication. It goes a long way. And so that's what I really hope that they're taking away, from seeing mommy. But also knowing that rest and self-care is important, which I'm very bad at. And so I'm trying to get better, but I want to make sure they understand that as hard as you work, you need to rest as well.
Was there a point where you had to I mean, you've had a very successful career, but was there a point where you said, "I'm gonna take this job instead of this job because it helps me balance life more?"
Yeah, that was, my move to OPM was just that. I had reached a point within the IC to where I couldn't participate in after school activities. I wasn't getting home in a timely fashion. I was very tired. I had very long commute. And the job was just very, very demanding. So I said, hey, they have a remote position available. And the former CIO, Melvin Brown, was also a UMGC alumni.
Cool.
He is the one that hired me over. So I was very blessed and thankful to be a part of the OPM team because it gave me that flexibility that I needed to, be a wife and a mom, but still, do the things that I love.
Totally get that. What do you like best about being in a leadership role? Because you are obviously in that. So what is it that you like?
It's the people. It's the people. I couldn't do what I do. I couldn't be successful without them. I always look at or think of myself as a servant leader, right? It's not about working out orders. It's not about, oh, I have all these people to do whatever I want them to do. But it's really about serving the people and meeting them where they are and leading them and inspiring them to make a difference, right? To want to do better, not only professionally, but personally as well, right? Like when they're going through hard times, when their families are going through hard times, it's being that human, right? Having that emotional intelligence to step in. Hey, are you okay? Do you want to talk about it? Yeah, I know we're at work, but we're still humans, right? And we need that. We need that connection from people. Right. And so that's what I love. I love the people and I love the folks that I work with. They're awesome. And it makes the job better.
I'm betting part of your communication background also helps, And not to say that people don't communicate in leadership, but you know what I'm saying, that it
Right.
makes you m better to communicate the message.
Yes, yes, and I recently became ICF certified as a life coach, and so that has helped as well. You know, being able to there's a way in which, as a coach, that you're able to connect with people that many folks don't have, and so going through that training, and I think I just have it naturally. That really helps too because I'm able to connect in a different way.
What's the number one piece of, advice you find yourself giving people, as a life coach or in your office? Is there, something that you're able to impart to them?
My faith is what leads me, and I understand, that that may not be something for everyone, right? But I like to tell my folks to just be who you are, be kind, be considerate, and if you do, are faith based, put your faith first. Trust in God and whatever it is that you want to do, and know that He is going to lead you and that He will never leave you nor forsake you. So that's kind of the advice that I like to give to folks.
It's your mantra.
Yes.
But I'm gonna guess it's also your mantra is stay out of comfort zones.
Yes. I,
So tell me
yes.
how you sort of figured that one out or why that's so important.
I don't think that I necessarily figured that out. It was more so I was pushed into it. I've had a lot of bosses and mentors and sponsors who have said, Danielle, you should do this thing. And I said, no, I should not do that thing. Absolutely. I should not go and brief the director as this very, very junior person. I don't think I should. Oh, you got it. And oh, by the way, we're not going to go with you either. You're going to do this by yourself. So I've had lots of opportunities for growth, as they would tell me, uh, to be able to get outside of my comfort zone. But I think, looking back, I needed that because if I didn't have that, I'm not certain that I would be where I am today. So my whole career has been about stepping outside of my comfort zone, whether I did it on my own or I was pushed. And 90% of the time I was pushed, but I'm thankful for it.
So sort of set that scene for me. If you're going into a meeting or, it's a Zoom or whatever, and all of a sudden you're the one in charge. You open the door and you're the one who has to like impart the info to people who are superior to you in the structure. You know what I'm saying? Sort of what's going through your head? What's going on?
I think now I mean, I think everyone's probably still gets nervous, but for me, it's, well, I know the information. I know what I'm talking about. I need to give them the information in order to make a decision, right? I know they have limited amount of time. So it's really, what is the bottom line up front? What do they need to know? Get it out there, and then let's have a dialogue. But it's also important to know that I don't need to know everything, right? And if I don't know an answer, I can say, that's a great question. Let me get back to you once I talk to my folks, and that's okay. It took me a long time to learn that I don't have to know everything, right? So I have smart people. So now it's just, all right, Danielle, you go in there, you say what you got to say, you get the decisions that you need. Sometimes they're decisions I want, sometimes they're not. But, it's all part of the game, right?
What's most surprised you about your current position? What is it that when you got there you thought, "Huh, I did not know that."
I would say, coming from the cyber or chief of cyber engineering to the chief information security officer role, I mean, I wasn't involved in all the day to day details, right? I wasn't involved in all of the conversations with the executives, right? And I didn't know where all the bones were buried. And so now, I'm getting pings like, "Hey, do you remember when, the previous CISO put this into place?" And I'm like, "No, let's talk about it. Can you tell me about it?" Right. So it's just kind of understanding that my armature has widen, right? Instead of being, kind of focused. So now I'm overseeing like an entire program and to and understanding that I have, people there to help, right? But it's, I'm responsible for leading them, right? For them being successful and ultimately the success of the program, right? So there's a lot of things that I'm learning each and every day, which I'm pretty sure I'll get new surprises, later on this afternoon. I'm sure.
And then you'll take a nap.
And then I was like, a nap. Yes.
Sometimes people, in a I don't want to say a higher position, but in a position like you, feel compelled to know everything. Like I have to know it all. But yet, I mean, reading through the interview notes for this, that was something you said really pointed. Like, I'll find out other things. I don't have to know everything.
Right.
And that's I don't think that's something everybody realizes.
Yep. Absolutely. I wish I would have learned that earlier on in my career. Would have saved me a lot of stress and anxiety. Uh, but I'm better for it today.
You mentioned just a little back that you're also life coaching now because you don't have enough to do, right?
Right.
So what made you want to be a life coach, a mentor? What made you want to, I want to say give back in some way, but what made you want to do it?
So I would say a couple, maybe like 5 years ago now, I was afforded the opportunity to work with a leadership coach. And she is just awesome. God rest her soul now. She has passed on. But she really helped me reframe my perspective and my thinking on things. I was struggling with a particular stakeholder on like really how to reach her and communicate with her and engage her. She really helped me reframe that and see things through a different lens. And I said, wow, like where were you earlier in my career? And so at that point, I was like, I want to do this. Like I can do this. And so not too shortly after that is when, I started my journey. And so now I focus on career and leadership development.
And why is that so important to you?
Developing the next set of leaders is crucial, right? And leaders that have empathy, that have emotional intelligence, right? It's not always about what you know technically, but how well you can inspire people and get the best out of people, right? Like that's what leadership is really all about, right? You
Mhm.
no longer really own the projects. You're responsible for other people's success, right? It's really helping them be successful is when you as a leader are successful. And, it kind of goes hand in hand with the career development because, I look back over my career and see how I was able to progress rapidly. And, of course, there were stumbles and pit holes and minefields along the way, but like helping folks to navigate that. I think that it's like the hidden secrets that aren't talked about when it comes to, progressing in your career that I want to impart onto others.
So I know this is a hard question because you don't know, but are there things left for you to learn? Like, are there areas where you go, I really need to find out more about this to make me a better leader?
Absolutely. I mean, if you reach the point where you stop learning, then you should probably step out of the leadership role.
Hmm.
Uh, because every day is a new adventure. Every day you should be learning, something new. I strive to be 1% better than the day before, right? But that comes of learning, like what's the newest technology, right? What do I need to know about how to better communicate with my people? Did I say something yesterday that unintentionally, may have caused a distraction or harm or whatever? And even in the home, how can I be a better mother? I mean, we're always learning. So, I don't for folks to say that they've achieved everything and they don't have anything to learn, I would question that.
It's a constant evolution.
It is.
Is there something you want to do, a role or something in the future, that you sort of have your sights on or some area that you'd like to get into?
I would say I definitely want to be, I guess it comes from like childhood. I've always said I was going to be like the billionaire entrepreneur one day. I still have a lot of learning, right, before that happens, a lot of money to make. But right now, I'm navigating, this CISO role as this is new for me. Of course, you should always be thinking, 5 years,
Right.
ahead of what does that next role look like for you. So I have some things in mind, but really just focused on, how do I navigate this new journey that I'm currently on.
Yeah, because I have to imagine it's incredibly busy and challenging, and it's sort of, "Let's get this, and then
Yes.
we'll, make our next step." So
Right.
your mom was government worker her entire life, you said?
Yep, yep. So she spent 11 years in the Navy, and then after that, she retired from the U.S. Coast Guard.
So what does she think of your whole, like, path, from, communications, cyber, helping lead an agency?
Oh, she is very proud, very, very proud. She started out in telecommunications, way back in the day when it was like plugging in the switchboard and all that stuff. So th- I, I couldn't give you the details, but yeah. So I like to think that I followed in her path, and she ended doing IT asset management. So yeah, and I actually, was the child that she brought to work every, bring your daughter, bring your sons to work day. I did summer internships with her, right? So I felt like it was just bred in me.
I was gonna say, how did that feel when what did you learn from that? What did you learn from that sort of that experience with your mom?
Uh, Professionalism, rank and file, because I worked around a lot of military folks.
Mm.
I learned that there's an order, right? In the way in which you have to do things, right? And I think a lot of, I'll say millennials, this day and age may not have that um, type of perspective or even like work ethic. I feel like I was almost a baby boomer, right? That just happened to be born in the millennial age.
'Cause you learned things from her, so
Yes,
a
yes.
little different. You didn't wanna go like Coast Guard way?
No, I never had an interest to go into the military, although I am very, thankful for those who served and gave their lives. But military was not for me.
It was a little too much order, right? Yes,
No.
right. Were there particular mentors that you had along the way that you see what they did for you today and you think, "Wow, that was so necessary, and maybe I wasn't always listening, but now I get it," that sort of thing?
Oh yes, so many, so many. Like the example I gave earlier about being pushed to brief one of the directors, as a very very junior officer, right? Even and even recently, they were pushing me to take all these leadership roles, which has prepared me to step into the CISO role. So yes, my mentors, my sponsors, I mean, they have just been incredible. And I am just so thankful for all the feedback, the guidance, the hard conversations when I needed to hear them. Yes, that definitely is what helped shape me into the professional that I am today.
One of the places you said you worked were one of the 3 alphabet, security agencies. This is a silly question, but I have to ask it. Since you're so good at communicating, is it like we see in Hollywood? Or is that world completely it's really much more humdrum than that?
I would say for me, mm, it wasn't that exciting. Holly was much more exciting. Although I'll tell you a funny story. So we had interns, every summer,
Mm.
and this one particular intern, um, we played a little joke on him, which I'm glad he had a sense of humor because it was hilarious. We told him that there was a helicopter pad, on the top of the building. That when you got a call, You had to like grab your go bag and go right away. And you never knew like where you were going. They didn't tell you anything until you got there, but you just had to go. And so
Very Jack Ryan. Very Jack
right,
Ryan.
right.
Right.
And so I had a pager. Um, that's how my kids were like babies, and still in daycare. And so I had a pager and I like left it by his desk on purpose. And it went off. And I was like, has anyone seen my pager? And he was like, it's here, it's beeping, it's beeping. And I said, oh my gosh, I gotta go. I was like, has anyone seen my go bag? And then I had one of my other colleagues, like, it's right here, Danielle. And like, we'll see you when we see you. And it was the weekend. So, it was Friday. Well, I was even until Monday anyways. And so I just grabbed my books, my book bag, and went out the door and went home. But on Monday, he was like, where did you go? I was like, if I tell you, I have to kill you. I mean, we ended up telling him. It was hilarious. He was a good sport about it, though.
Are there some like life hacks that you've learned about balancing everything? Are there some tips out there that you figured out along the way?
You just have to do it. You just whatever you need to do to make it work, you just got to make it work. There are some days I don't have all the answers. There are some days where I'm just like, oh, please, Lord, give me strength. Give me strength for today. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to figure it out. I mean, there are some times where they're literally just laying on me and I'm working, right? Or there's some days where I'm like, you know what? I absolutely cannot work today because they need my complete and total attention, right? And then I hand it off. Because those are days that I need to be present, right? So I think it's just whatever is needed in the moment, I just have to make it happen. That's what I do.
Danielle, thanks so much for joining us today. We loved having you on Unstoppable Stories. And for folks listening or watching, don't forget to subscribe to us on your, podcast channels. Thanks so much for being here. See you next time.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.